Hello, and welcome to the Thursday Night Kissaten podcast. I'm the host, Cordelia. Today, in this episode, in this cold winter, we're going to talk about a book called Kamogawa Restaurant, Kamogawa食堂, and a little bit about its TV adaptation. Kamogawa Restaurant is a novel theory by Hisashi Kashiwai and was first published in 2013. It was later adapted into a TV theory, which is aired on NHK from January 10th to February 28th in 2016. There are a total of 7 books in the theory. In the story, Kamogawa Restaurant is a small restaurant hidden in an alley in Kyoto that serves the most delicious food. Kamogawa is a river. To break it down, Kamo means duck and Gawa means river. And this river runs its way across the city of Kyoto. The restaurant stands next to Higashi Hoganji Temple on the bank of Kamogawa. It has no signature board, but is still unforgettable for many people. Not only because it's food, but also the special service they offer. Their advertisement, just a few words in a food magazine, and it says, "Looking for food for you." The customer cannot order food there, unfortunately, but the chef, Nagare, will arrange it carefully to bring the surprise to the guest flavor buds. There is a creative gloomy detective agency on the second floor of the cafeteria, which is run by the chef's daughter, Koishi. And that's why the advertisement is looking for the food for you. This is a book where you have to eat a full meal before reading or bring snacks along the reading journey, because the more you read, the hungrier you will get. The TV adaptation has 8 episodes in total and perfectly portrays the restaurant, Kyoto's scenery, Kyoto's dialogue, and also Kyoto's food in moving pictures form. The stories are mostly picked from the first 2 volumes of the theory. The writer of this novel theory, Hisashi Kashiwai, also his pen name, Keiichiro Kashiwai, was born and raised in Kyoto. He loves to travel and is particularly fond and proud of his hometown. He has even written numerous essays on charms of Kyoto and Kyoto's cuisine. Kamogawa Restaurant is a theory of short stories first published in 2013. And before that was serialized in the literary journal called Storybox. The latest 7th volume, Kamogawa Restaurant, The Hospitality, was published in 2020. The first 2 volumes have also been translated into multiple languages, but have not yet to be translated in English. So I finished the first 2 volumes and just started the 3rd volume last week. And I have to say, this is a very addictive theory. As I carry along with my reading, some questions popped up in my head, such as, what kind of magic is hidden in the ordinary food to the point that it can change the course of someone's life and destiny? And why is someone so obsessed with some certain food that they have to ask for a specialized detective to find it for them? as we introduced earlier, that the Kamogawa Restaurant has also a different name, which is Kamogawa Detective Agency. The chef's daughter, Koichi, records the clips that provided by the guests, and 2 weeks later, Nagale, the chef, will serve the same food that the guests have longed for. After eating the memory of the flavor, the guests, they sigh and sigh, and somehow feel like the dark knot in their heart has been softened by the hotness of the food. After trying that flavor, the warmth and strength of the food fills the stomach and travels to the heart, and also the inner lines become a little clearer. What a magical place, isn't it? So the Kamogawa Restaurant, for my own opinion, is more like a lost and found. Every found dish or the recipe untied a knot in someone's heart, right? And everyone has a flavor that they must eat, and it is the flavor that lays even the foundations of someone's life. So, for example, in the first volume, a man named Hidetsuji Kobuyama, and he is about to settle in his fiance's hometown, but he just cannot forget his ex-wife's udon recipe. His fiancée also cannot make the way that he remembers, so he walks into the Kamogawa Restaurant and hopes they can help him restore his last ex-wife's recipe. And also in another story, that when asked by her daughter about how it felt to be proposed to, a lady named Nobuko remembers how 55 years ago, when a boy that she loved proposed to her, but she was panicked and rushed away and left a half-eaten beef stew on the table. And because the flavor and the smell of the beef stew reminded with her for the next 55 years, she finds the Kamogawa Restaurant and wishes to eat the food again and to share the feeling of being proposed and experience with her daughter. And in another story, that Hirose's husband became seriously ill and passed away. Then she visits the Kamogawa Restaurant and requests to reproduce the katsudon that her husband made in the past, just to celebrate his life and remembering the flavor of the food. So the 6 stories in total in the first volumes are all about food, of course, and about the flavor. However, to an extent, I feel like the food is only the introduction, and the sweet and sour story of the life behind it is the most moving part of the novel. So what an amazing metaphor the writer's using here in the stories. So in the story, Nagale not only makes the food but also helps searching for the food, because he was actually, before he became a chef, he was a police officer. And the food that he researches is based on the research his daughter Koichi did, and this is the discovery of stories that were, maybe buried for years, and also a search for a life that has gone by. So very meaningful, all the stories and the life stories behind the food. So during my first reading, I didn't feel this hotness in my heart, but this very light and warm. And every single time when I finish one story, I will have like a very light sigh after, because when I look deeper, it is all sadness in all its own forms. Okay, maybe I don't know whether this metaphor can get to you, but please stay with me, because I feel like all the stories is like a sushi roll. like a North American style sushi roll that is filling in the mixture of life, death, illness, love, separation, and also the inability to leave, as well as this great regret and loss. So, and it is covered with this wet rice that wrapped everything that we mentioned together. And it's just like the rice cannot cover the delicious flavor of the sushi. It has a different texture, neither kind of warm and shallow narrative can hide the vibration it triggers, in the reader's heart like mine. But it's the whole itself. It's a big, thick sushi roll that you can't just eat at once, but you have to try it to have it a bit by bit. So, let's go back to one of the stories that I mentioned earlier, where a lady named Nobuko searches for the flavor of this beef stew in her memory. Nobuko is left wondering about what would happen if she actually finished the meal that day. The conversation had continued. If she had said yes to the boy's proposal, if her life would never be the same again. So 55 years later, and she still wants to confirm this, and even though, in my own opinion, it's a little bit too late. And how relatable it is, right? Almost everyone thinks back to those choices that they made in the past and wonders if their lives could look different. That flavor, I think the flavor in the story is called regret, and it's present for almost everyone in the story for that part. I can't help but wonder, when what the regrets strikes, what is my exit strategy? I don't have a beef stew to eat to get it out. How I usually face the loss, or how other people do. Was I too sad or too busy to even think about those? I'm not sure. But one thing that I'm sure is I heal. My regrets healed. The feeling healed when I was reading this book. So definitely at the Kamogawa Restaurant, the flavors lead us to solve the life's puzzles. The meaning of many notions in life only becomes apparent after the years have passed. This is extremely being highlighted in the novel. To restore the memory and to cleanse oneself, when it is lifted, we might be surprised about the past, and then our eyes will fill up the tears, like a lot of the narratives in the stories will do. I think the writer here trying to show a point that the life might be full of regret, but still shining with the light of dignity, to which bring us back again and again from reincarnations. So in one of the story, the writer writes, "The amount of love that one's heart can bear can also bear the same amount of painfulness." There are always a very studied sensitivities and respect for the emotions have always been one of the feature of Japanese literature. It's not the hotness, it is settled warmth. It is the respect of a remembrance of the love that makes emotions warm and long-lasting, I believe here. In one of the stories, Nagale mentions this. He says, Young people will always unconditionally fall for delicious food. But people like us, who are older, will always be led by the spice called memories. What does the spice of memory smell, or what's the flavors like? I think I do know what it could be for me, or maybe I'm just sensitive enough to notice it. The smell of good miso soup with the deep-fried tofu in it brings me back to my old house in Nara and the back of Hanako Bajang. And the flavor of saba sushi brings me back to the riverbank in Kyoto on a sticky summer. And the kumis on the lamp kababas takes me back to having a bubbly drink on a wooden bench in a hutong in Beijing. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you have some time, ask yourself or people around you, what delicious food and special spices do you want at the Kamogawa Restaurant to restore for you? And what memories will they bring you? This episode is edited by Grace and written by me, Cordelia. I also translate any dialogue mentioned in this episode from Japanese. Hope to talk to you soon in our next episode.